Traders, welcome back to the Trading Psychology Mastery series. Today we are going to discuss greed, pride, and ego. And probably one of the most important components of your psychology that you need to master if you want to get consistently paid as a trader. We talked previously about fear, and really it's both fear and greed that are going to take you away from your trading plan and stop you from consistently sticking to your plan. And we're diving into greed, pride, and ego, showing you how you can manage it because, believe it or not, it's probably stopping you from consistently getting paid as a trader. Okay? If you find this video useful, share it with your trading community. And if you haven't already, make sure you do the trading psychology quiz, which is linked in the description below. So let's get into it. Okay, and you also have to excuse, I've got a bit of a man flu, a bit of a runny nose. So, greed, pride, and ego. And we're also going to discuss the intuition myth, because there are a lot of traders who think that they're trading with intuition when really what they're doing is they're trading out of greed, and they're confusing intuition and greed, and as a result they're not having very good results when they trade discretionally. Okay, so greed, pride, and ego, what we're pretty much saying when we go into a greed, pride, and ego state is that we know what's going to happen next in the market. We can predict what's about to happen next, and really any state of greed, any state of pride or ego that we bring into the market, we're imposing our own will, we're imposing our own agenda into the market, and we're thinking naively that we can predict the market's next moves. But the truth is, there are millions of factors influencing price in the financial markets, and to think that you can predict what's going to happen next in the market is an exaggeration of yourself. It's an ego trip. Nobody can predict what's going to happen next on the individual trade. And the truth is you don't need to. So whenever we exaggerate ourselves into this state of pride, or we go into this greed or ego state, and I'm using all these words interchangeably, really, they all kind of mean the same thing. They're all interrelated. But when we go into this state of pride, we then block ourselves out from being present with the market and listening to the market, because what we've done is we've now exaggerated our abilities. We're now minimizing risk in the market. We're thinking we're better than the market. We're thinking that we can predict what's going to happen next. So we're not listening to the market. We're just forcing and projecting our own agenda and our own idea. Eurodollar is going to get to this price by this time. I'm going to make this amount of money. I'm going to pass my funding challenge. These are all ideas that we create when we're in this state of pride. Okay? Now, greed comes from a very particular place. If we've got future, imagination, if we've got past memory, if we've got positive and negative, the greed is this component here. It's the component, and this is you being present here and now, right now. This is more of a process-based mentality. All these emotions coming outwards from here is all outcome-based emotions. Okay? And we talked about fear is this component here. We talked about that yesterday or in the last episode. And greed is very much the perception that sometime in the future, you're going to have this positive experience. This is what we call a greed or a fantasy, an experience that is more positive than negative, more benefit than drawback, more good than bad. And the truth is, everything has two sides to it, whether we see it or not. So the greed, the fantasy is what we create in our mind, this idea of this perception that sometime in the future, this positive event's going to happen. Okay? Now, the greeds and the fantasy, and whenever we bring these to the market, we can also call these unrealistic expectations. Why? Because nobody can predict what's going to happen next in the market. So whenever we impose an all positive greed or fantasy onto the market, or an outcome that's more positive than negative, we're now imposing an unrealistic expectation onto the market. These greeds come from past infatuations, moments in the past where you have, maybe experienced a win in the market, and you got really elated by that win, and you labeled it a very positive, a very pleasurable experience, and that's going to mirror forward into a future greed. And you're going to think that I can replicate that again, time again. And you're going to impose, you see the same pattern forming in the past, that results in X amount of dollars, you're going to impose that idea onto the market, expecting the market to give you something unrealistically. That's the whole idea of greed, pride, and ego. And that's going to take you away from being process-based. Because Whenever you're process-based, you're listening to the market. If the market aligns with your plan, you execute. But when you go into pride, or when you go into shame and fear, this is pride and greed, this is shame and fear, you block yourself out from this dynamic of listening and executing on your plan. And with the pride and greed, you exaggerate yourself and you force ideas onto the market, what you think is going to happen next. Okay, and that's ultimately what kills your consistent profitability. Because to get consistently paid by the market, you have to consistently stick to your trading plan. You have to be here. But you can't consistently stick to your trading plan if you're exaggerating yourself and projecting onto the market, or minimizing yourself and not executing when the market presents opportunities because you're fearful. Okay? So you have to be very aware of this dynamic and this greed. Now, the way you overcome this is very, very simple. And I've talked about the Bulletproof Your Mindset tool in this series before, but you want to implement that Bulletproof Your Mindset tool. It's linked in the description. But really what you want to be doing is you want to be grounding this idea, which the Bulletproof Your Mindset tool is going to help you do, grounding this idea that you can predict what's going to happen next. Because it's a fantasy you create in your own mind. And recognize that you don't need to know what's going to happen next. You don't need to know what's going to happen next on the individual trade. Because what you have to do is you have to consistently stick to your edge, to your trading plan, and that's what's going to yield you consistent profitability. So you don't need to be right on that individual trade. You don't need to stroke your ego on that individual trade. What you have to do is you have to transcend this outcome-based thinking and consistently stick to your trading plan. The way you do that is by utilizing the Bulletproof Your Mindset tool before every trade you take. And what that tool is going to help you do is it's going to help you identify any unrealistic expectations, prides, greeds, fantasies that you're imposing onto the market, and it's going to take you through a questioning process to ground those so you can humble yourself and you can remind yourself that you can't predict what's going to happen next and you don't need to know what's going to happen next. What you have to do is you have to consistently stick to your trading plan, your trading processes, your trading edge. That's how you get consistently paid by the markets. Okay? Now, I also see a lot of traders who say that I want to trade intuitively. I don't want to use mechanical trading. I want to trade intuitively. I want to trade based on discretion. And really what a lot of traders do when they think they're trading based on intuition is a higher state. Once you have your processes mastered, once you have your trading plan mastered, you've got the foundations there, you can then use intuitive or discretionary trading to make 1% decisions in that moment. But what a lot of traders are doing is they're confusing intuition or discretionary trading with greed. Greed is outcome-based. It's the desire for a positive outcome. And remember, nobody can predict what's going to happen next in the market. Therefore, if you're trying to and you're addicted to the greed and the pleasure of winning, you're going to attract a lot of very painful losses. Because the more and more you seek after the positive win, and you inevitably have losses, the more pleasure you associate to the positive, and you swing to the left with the positive, the more pain you're going to have associated with the pain, and swing to the right with pain, because they're an entangled pair in your psyche. Okay? So what a lot of traders are doing is they're confusing intuition with greed, and instead of actually truly trading from an intuitive state or a discretionary state, what they're doing is they're imposing unrealistic expectations, wanting to seek after the pleasure of winning and wanting to seek after that outcome, which is greed. It's this addiction to this polarity, which ends up at times when the inevitable losses come around having very, very painful losses. The way you go from outcome-based thinking to truly trading intuitively is by implementing process-based thinking, using the Bulletproof Your Mindset tool, having a strict mechanical system, and then discretion and intuition will come to you, but you'll have to make sure that to double check, you're not seeking after a positive outcome in that trade. If you have an intuitive thought or an intuitive sense that this trade has an edge, this trade that I'm looking at right now, it doesn't align 100% with my trading plan. It's ticked all the criteria, but it looks slightly different. But I have an intuitive sense that it's going to have an edge in that moment. then you take that trade, but you still have to take that trade through intuition with realistic expectations of both outcomes, either a positive or a negative outcome, but either outcome, it doesn't matter. What matters is the larger sample space. Here is a small sample space. When we've caught up in outcome-based thinking, we think about the individual trade. Small thinking, when we're up here in the process, we think about the larger sample space. Okay? So you've probably heard me say that you can only have intuitive trading and discretionary trading once you've mastered the foundations of your mechanical trading plan and you've mastered your psychology, you understand fear and greed, you understand the difference between outcome-based thinking and process-based thinking. This is where it ties in. Okay? So be aware of this greed trap. Make sure you're humbling yourself, grounding yourself. Use the Bulletproof Your Mindset tool to keep yourself grounded, keep yourself sticking to your trading plan. And if you truly want intuitive trading, it will come to you, but make sure you're going in with it to those trades still with realistic expectations on either outcome could come, because nobody can predict the outcome of the next individual trade. And ensure that you're implementing process-based thinking. Okay? If you found this useful, please share the video with your trading communities. And if you haven't already, make sure you dive into the Trading Psychology Archetype Quiz. That quiz is going to tell you which of the 4 trading mindsets you have, as well as give you a completely free, personalized report telling you exactly what you have to do to get from where you are to get consistently profitable as a trader. Okay? Thank you for watching to the end, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow.